Hi, Year 9. Here we are again, back doing some more home learning. Please just make sure you read the green box at the top. So it's just me reminding you that you must keep all of your history work together. You must bring it all in to go into your history book when back at school. This lesson is stuff we would have done if school would have been open. So please do not throw away your work. Do not assume that because you've sent me something on Show My Homework that you no longer need it. You must keep everything. If you're doing your work on a computer, you must be able to print it off or email it to your school email and print it when back in school. If you can't do either of those things, don't do your work on a computer, guys, okay? I cannot print work for you, unfortunately, except in very exceptional circumstances, all right? Because of the amount of students I would have to do that for. It's just impossible. I just can't do it, okay? So please remember to keep all of your work. The same rules apply as last time. When you see the phone screenshot, that is the one that you know that you need to send me on Show My Homework, but that is just for me to check that you are doing the work, okay? So I'm not keeping that work. I just look at it, I check you're doing it, and I will send you something back. All right, so please remember that. So our title for today, we're starting a bit of a new unit. So originally what we would have done had we been in school is we would have been working towards our assessment. We have 3 lessons on what the Jewish people did to resist what was happening to them for 3 lessons, and then we would have gone into doing your assessment. But unfortunately, you would be at home for your assessment, so it's just not fair to do that to you. So we're going to come back and revisit that later. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move on to our new unit, which is looking at the causes of World War II. All right, but to look at the causes of World War II, we really need to go back to what happened at the end of World War One, and what sort of things were put in place. Okay, so your title for today is How Did Countries Try to Avoid More Wars? Specifically, we're going to be looking at the League of Nations as well. And I should just point out here, guys, that this is 2 lessons worth of work. Okay, so this covers 2 lessons worth of work. This would have been a double that we would have done in class. So it might seem like there are a lot of tasks, but that's because it will be the same thing that I will set for the following lesson. So I do expect all the tasks to be done. Okay, so if you pause it now and get the title down for me and then press play when you're ready. So just a little bit of a memory test here, guys, to start you off today. I want you to see if you can remember the big 3. The big 3. So we spoke about them right the way back, actually, when we were in St. Celia's, back over in some of our first lessons, and they were the big 3 that were responsible for the Treaty of Versailles. So have a little test of yourself, see if you can write down their names, the countries they were from, okay, as much as you can remember. All right, guys, so you may have got this right. I'm hoping that some of you will have and that I've managed to teach you something. But if not, here is a recap of who the big 3 were. So the first one we have got Georges Clemenceau. He was the president of France, the fiery politician, nicknamed the Tiger. Okay, and we remember that each of the big 3 had a different degree of harshness that they wanted to apply to Germany. France was the harshest. They really wanted Germany to be punished. A lot of the fighting had taken place on their land in France. A lot of their land had been destroyed, okay, and they were very concerned that they shared a border with Germany. So they really wanted to come down hard with Germany. Next up, we have got David Lloyd George. He was our British Prime Minister. He was a very experienced politician. And he was kind of in the middle. He thought that they should have some form of punishment, not too harsh, but at the same time, not too easy on them. And then our third one we've got is Woodrow Wilson. So he was the American president. He brought the USA into the war in 1917. Now, bearing in mind World War I had started in 1914, it had been going on 3 years before he allowed America to join. So he wasn't really that up for punishing Germany at all. None of the fighting had obviously happened in America. Their losses had been relatively small. So he was kind of the other side, the complete opposite to Georges Clemenceau. So there are our big three, just to revisit, because we're going to go on now to talk about the Treaty of Versailles. So we did loads on the Treaty of Versailles, guys. So this is really just to get the information back into your heads and get you thinking about it again. So we know that the terms of the treaty can be separated into 3 very clear sections. So you have got the territorial terms. So that's anything to do with land. Okay, so either Germany losing land, anything like that comes under territory. Then we've got the military terms. So anything to do with boats in the Navy, tanks, warplanes, anything like that comes under military, including also men in the military, so the size of an army. And then we've got our financial terms. So obviously that is anything to do with money. And remember, we've got that final thing that comes under the Treaty of Versailles, which doesn't fit into any of the three sections, and that was the war guilt clause, and that was the one that made German people really quite cross. It was basically them accepting that the war was all their fault and that they were completely to blame. So it isn't about territory, it isn't about money, it isn't about military, but it was an important one. All right, so they were our three terms of the Treaty of Versailles. So I just want to have a little bit of a read through the diagram that you've got there. Okay, we know that Germany were forced to sign it. Okay, and they really had no option. They really had no option not to sign it. Okay, other losing countries, so countries that were with Germany in the First World War, they signed different treaties, okay, and they were also fined, and they lost land, and they lost weapons. So it really wasn't just Germany that took the brunt of this. Germany got the most punishment, but by no means were they the only country that was involved in this. All right, so we know the key terms here. So you've got Germany had to pay for the war. So that comes under financial, okay? The figure was set as 6.6 billion, all right? And then at the bottom there on that first one in the diagram, they must sign to agree that they'd started the war as well. That was that war guilt clause. Okay, then straight underneath that, you've got the League of Nations being set up. And we're going to talk about the League of Nations today. So you won't know much about what it is, but by the end of the lesson, you'll have a bit more of an understanding. So it was a bit like an international club. They would meet regularly to talk about the problems rather than fight over them. It'd also work on strategies to improve the world. So the winning countries would join it first, and the losing countries, they might be allowed to join later. All right, and so one of the things that Germany wasn't allowed to do is that they weren't allowed to join the League of Nations. They were banned from joining it. And if we go over to the top right, you have got Germany to hand over their colonies to Britain and France, to Britain and France. So remember, a colony is a piece of land within a country, or an area of land within a country that is owned by another country. So Britain, for example, had colonies in America. We owned a huge amount of India. All right, and Germany owned lots of places as well. They were removed and they were given to Britain and France. Underneath that, you have got parts of the losing countries were cut off to make new countries that wanted to run themselves. So this goes back to the territorial terms of the treaty. Okay, so countries were divided and plebiscites took place. And a plebiscite is when a country is allowed to decide who wants to run it. They take a vote. All right, and we spoke a little bit about that previously. And then the final one we've got at the bottom there is Germany to have no air force. So this was a really key military term. No air force, no submarines or tanks, and they were only allowed a very small army of 100,000 men and 6 battleships. And no German soldiers were allowed in the Rhineland, okay? And that was an area near France, and that was an area as well where there were no weapons allowed. It was a demilitarized zone, okay? So demilitarized. So no weapons allowed in there, no German soldiers allowed in there. And that was given as a protection for France, because obviously they shared a border with Germany and this bit of land existed between the two countries. So it was set up so that France would feel a bit more safer. Okay. So this is your first task of today, guys. You've got 5 questions that I'd like you to answer in full sentences, please. So perfect answer for number 1. Who were the big 3 and where were they from? The big 3 were: list the first one, where he's from; list the second one, where he's from; list the third one, where he is from. Okay, very simple sentences, but they must be full sentences. Okay, and when you get to number 5, it's asking you to go and look back at that previous diagram that I just read through, and I want you to copy out the key terms there. Okay, copy out however it works for you. Do it with those pictures, write it out how it is like that, do it as a mind map, however you want to do it. It shouldn't take you very long, but it's up to you how you want to interpret it and get the information down. Okay. All right, so I just want to spend a very short minute just talking through the reactions to the TOV, which is our Treaty of Versailles. Okay, we know that the reaction was mixed. None of the big three got everything that they wanted. All right, so none of them were completely happy with it. Germans hated it. All right, and by Germans, I mean ordinary Germans. So regular German people absolutely hated it. They hated the men that had signed it, and they really felt that they should have been given a chance to discuss the terms. We know that the two Germans that signed it weren't given that opportunity, but the German people felt that they should have been. And the two guys that signed it were accused of really stabbing their country in the back, and showing real weakness. They should have put up more of a fight. Okay, so just the speech bubbles there. So at the top, we've got Georges Clemenceau, our French president. So he said it isn't harsh enough. Okay, you need to split the country into smaller states. You split a country up, it's got less power, okay, because each state is governed separately. So it's taking away their power. And then you've got Woodrow there. He's saying, no, that's far too harsh. I wouldn't sign this if I was a German. Okay, so he is saying that this is harsh. We have been too harsh on them. And remember, he didn't want to be too harsh on them. And then we've got at the bottom there, David Lloyd George. So he said if they feel unfairly treated, they're going to find a way of getting revenge. And we know, guys, we talk about the Treaty of Versailles because it is so important in how we got into World War II, because Germany were not happy with it, okay? They did want to get revenge. And actually, the person that they put in charge, Adolf, he really wanted revenge. And then right at the bottom there, you've got just a regular German person. I'm being very stereotypical with that picture of a German person in lederhosen, but I thought it was quite amusing. And I hate this treaty. It isn't fair. It makes us look weak. We should never have signed it. All right, so you've got 4 different reactions there. So we're going to move on now to talk about the League of Nations, okay, and what it was. The League of Nations was part of the Treaty of Versailles. It was one of the things that came about from the Treaty of Versailles being signed. It was essentially a group of countries that joined together in an effort to prevent another war. All right, and they decided that the way they would do that is they would use this League of Nations to settle disputes peacefully in discussion. Okay, so representatives from each country around a table discussing what their issues were, rather than it going to another world war, which obviously, you know, led to a huge loss of life and destruction pretty much of Belgium and France, you know, the land. It was Woodrow Wilson, the American president's idea. Okay, so it was his thing. He really wanted it implemented. So straight away, as soon as it came about, 42 countries signed up to it. All right, and when we think about how many countries in the world, that's actually fewer than half of the countries in the world. Now, if you want something like this to work, you really need to have all of the countries or a large percentage of the countries in it. Because if you've got a country that is in it and a country that isn't in it, they're not going to be able to settle their dispute. All right. If one country did declare war on another, the other countries would stop trading with them. All right. And that was a tactic that they sort of used to try and avoid war. Okay, so if Germany had declared war on Poland, for example, okay, we're obviously at the end of World War I at the moment. So if they declared war on Poland, all the countries in the League would stop trading with Germany. And that would have massive economic problems for them. Okay, huge economic problems, and it would cut off their supply chain. So the idea would be is to cut them off until they end the dispute and say, okay, we won't. All right, so that was a tactic that the League used. No violence involved, just stopping. All right, stopping trading with them. And at first, during the 1920s, it was successful. They did a number of really good things, which we're going to talk about on the next slide. All right, but by the end of the 1930s, when we're getting to the outbreak of World War II, 1939, it obviously completely failed to maintain peace. We know that it failed, guys, because World War II started. All right, and Hitler was able to do all of these things despite he actually removed himself. He removed Germany from the League of Nations. They were banned at first, then they were allowed in, and then he had them removed. So then he didn't have to, you know, keep to any of the terms of the League. So we're going to just look now at how the League was put together. All right. So what we've got. Ignore my pictures there. All right, so actually maybe I should just quickly mention this. So as I've just said, Germany were banned. They were not allowed to join the league. Okay, and then you've got America there. It was Woodrow Wilson's idea, but in the USA, it was not a popular idea, and the USA said they were not joining. So even though it was their president's idea, America, one of the biggest and most powerful countries in the world, wasn't in it. So straight away, it's going to hit a problem. All right, and then you have got who is that? Russia. Sorry. You've got Russia, okay, and they decided to not join. Again, big country, big military power, okay, so they decided they were not going to join. So problems for the league really from when it started. So what I would like you to do, guys, is watch this clip for me, please. It's 8 minutes long. You need to go back to the Show My Homework description and you'll see it there. It will say link 1, the League of Nations. Just watch it and it will talk to you about the League of Nations and the things that it did. When you've watched that, come back and have a look at the table that is on the next slide. So I want you to have a read through of all of these different boxes, okay? And what is important about these boxes is that they can be broken down into one of 4 categories, which are the coloured bits on the left there. So you've got aims, organisation, successes and failures. All right, so in class, we would have done this as a table where I would have asked you to highlight them in 4 different colours like we've done before, but obviously we can't do that at the moment. So what I would like you to do is have a read of all these. You can obviously come back to them and look at them in a second. And then what you're going to do is go on to your main task for today. And this is the one that's got the photo, but I'd like you to send the photo of with it completed. Okay, so you're going to read through each of the boxes on the sheet, not on the sheet, back on the previous slide there, and you're going to draw out a very simple table like you've got the example of there. All right, and if you read something and it's an aim, so something the league wanted to achieve, then it's going to be written in the aim box. If you think it's something about the organisation of the league, so explaining the different parts of it, things like that, going organisation, anything successful, so any good things that the league did in successes, and anything that it did not do very well are obviously going to go in failures, okay? Really important for this task, guys. This is your main task for today. So I do not want to see anyone half-heartedly filling this out. The full descriptions need to be written into the table, all right? And you need to separate so if you've got 3 or 4 things in your aim column, separate each thing with a line going across so that we can see where the different things are. All right, and this is the thing that I would like you to send me. So please do make sure that you are doing it well. All right. So now you've done that, you will have seen in your table that there were some successes from the league, and there were also some failures from the league. So what I would like you to do is answer the following. So this is just a chance for you to consolidate your knowledge and put it into sentences, okay? So I want you to tell me which 2 successes do you think were the most important and why. All right, so you need to fully explain the successes and why they were most important and why you think that. Then you flip it over. Which 2 failures do you think were the most important and why do you think this? So which things were the biggest failures that you thought occurred during the time of the league? And then question 3, I want you to think about this. So in its early years, up to 1939, so the outbreak of World War II, was the League of Nations a success or not? All right, so give examples from the table to support your answer. So if you're saying, yes, it was a success, you need to be talking to me about all of the successes, and that you need to be making the point that the failures and what they were fairly small. Or if you think that it was a failure, you need to be talking to me about all of the things that it failed in, okay? And give reasons and examples for that. All right, so this should be a fairly concise answer, so you do need to take your time on this one, okay? All right, so this is just a final little quiz, guys, just for you to test your knowledge from the double lesson that you would have just finished. So you've got, sorry, there's 10 questions. Obviously, they've been numbered slightly incorrectly there, but you've got 10 questions that you need to answer, have a go at. Try and test your knowledge, okay? Go back if you really need to, but have a go first maybe and see how many you can get. Test yourself and actually just do it honestly, okay? And feel free to send me a picture of your scores if you want to. That's no problem at all. And I will see you guys for when we do our next lesson, which will just be a singular lesson. So I will speak to you again then.